Welcome back to another episode of the BioHub. Today, I'm joined by Rick Winningham, CEO of Theravance Biopharma, a leader who has shaped the biotech and pharma landscape for decades. Rick has been at the helm of Theravance since 2001, guiding the company through major strategic pivots, industry shifts, and groundbreaking developments. With a career including 15 years at BMS, he has led blockbuster drug launches, billion-dollar partnerships, and key industry initiatives. In this episode, we'll dive into the evolution of the industry and how it shapes decision-making at Theravance, the impacts of China and India in biotech, the tough market conditions and how to navigate them, and what it takes to inspire the next generation of biotech leaders. So great to have you. Thanks for coming on, Rick.
Max, thank you. Very excited about today.
Yeah, let's dive into it. So first of all, it might be good just to give a bit of a brief snapshot on who Theravance are.
Sure. Theravance Biopharma today is a commercial stage biotechnology company. We market one product in the United States, a medicine to treat COPD, sometimes called emphysema. So, we're strong financially. We've got cash in the balance sheet, as I said, not burning much money, and we have a line on a lot of milestones, cash milestones from programs over the next 12 to 18 months.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then, if we just look at your journey and your story, and then also what inspired you to pursue a career in biopharma and ultimately come on to Theravance.
Yeah, that's a great question, because I was actually talking with somebody about that this week. And when I joined Bristol Myers, I was working in consulting for a major consulting firm, and I was asked to join Bristol Myers, and the sophistication of my analysis was basically delivering healthcare in a pill or delivering healthcare in a shot or injection. That had to be a good thing to do, because you were going to, if you did that well, you were going to keep people out of high intensive labor environments like hospitals. So that had to be, just big picture economically, that had to be a good place to work in. And then I thought, wouldn't it be cool to actually be involved with improving healthcare at scale? And that would be something, if I got involved with, and I was lucky enough to spend my career doing it, I could look back and say, wow, that was good. I did something. I kind of left the place better than I found it. So,
yeah, I think you get a lot of people in this industry who are very mission driven. You ultimately massively fit into one of those, which you've just seen throughout the time at Theravance.
Yeah, and I think the decision to leave Bristol Myers, which is a company that I really loved, and I was running oncology at the time and virology, and it was a dream job for me because of what we could do for patients, and come to a very startup company in South San Francisco was an incredibly difficult decision. But I was going to go to work for a guy, Roy Vagelos, who I'd seen run Merck, and who was a real just phenomenal leader, and with a strong sense of what's right, how to do things the right way. And so I came to Theravance not only because I wanted to put mark in working with people on other medicines, but I came to work at Theravance also so I could learn from Dr. Vagelos, and I just thought that that would be a great thing, to be able to take away some learnings from one of the people I thought was a real giant of industry.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting topic as well, like that mentorship aspect. And you also joined the company for not necessarily the technology, but the people, 100%.
Yes, and I think the basic technology, there was an edge there in the technology, the chemical insight that we could potentially lever to discover and then develop medicines, and the work of creating a culture of a company where there wasn't really a company, and the ability to work with not only Dr. Vagelos, but work with and then hire in extraordinarily talented people that were, as you said, very mission oriented, very mission focused, and driven by the ability to create new medicines, and leveraging this insight. And it was a terrifically exciting. Another person joined with me. In fact, his name was Pat Humphrey. He was the most cited pharmacologist in the 1990s because of his work on 5-HT or serotonin. And Pat and I decided to join Theravance simultaneously. We were having lunch in Princeton, and Dr. Vagelos thought it would be a good idea if we got together. And because he was trying to recruit Pat, who was a research background, and me, who had commercial and some development experience. And we basically agreed I would go if Pat went, and Pat would go if I went, because we had complementary skill sets. And he was another person that I could learn from. And not only that, but he was a person who could teach others, who could teach young scientists, young chemists, young biologists, what the process of discovery was, and how to discover and create new medicines. And without Pat's imprint on the company, and without his leadership, we would have never become and been able to do the drug discovery and have the success that we've had.
That's amazing. Let's just talk about like what's happened more recently. Specifically pursuing a niche and the rare disease market. What's behind the strategy, and also how does it tie to the returns you want to create for your shareholders?
Yeah, so I think today, and it's not just today, but in the recent past and in the future, you have to be able to find a niche where in the market where you can compete in a superior way. 20 years ago, in particular, maybe 25 years ago, that wasn't that much of a requirement, because the industry wasn't as competitive as it is today. Payers didn't have the influence that they have today. But today, and in the next 10 to 15 years, certainly, if you can't identify a niche with your medicine where you think you can outperform everyone else, and in fact that you have created a medicine such that you can have that niche by yourself for a period of time and not have competition, you will not, by and large, you will not be successful. You have to have a superior technology, and then you have to define the niche that you're going to compete in a superior way, such that you will not face terrific competition. Because if you get 3 to 4 players in a given niche today in a commercial market, they'll begin to put pressure on price, returns will decline, and you'll find yourself in a very difficult position as a company.
That's such a good point. I suppose, like from an outsider's perspective, it's not something I always think of. At the moment, you're running a global trial in a rare neuro indication, an OH in patients with MSA. What are the challenges of benefits of doing so?
Well, I think that the benefits of running a global trial is you get to go throughout the world and find in a variety of countries the very best investigators, the very best people that understand this given disease, and in fact can manage the patient in the study and after the study. That's the benefit. So it's an access to fantastic, the best of the best in investigators who have chosen to dedicate their lives to the treatment of this disease. And then the patients, such that it's a rare disease, So you need to cast your strategy a bit wide to make sure that you can recruit enough patients into your study to accomplish your clinical objectives. I think that it takes, and it still takes a lot of focus and a lot of effort, because again, we're 100 people. In that 100 people at Theravance, part of those people are commercializing a medicine for COPD in the United States, and the other part are really in drug development, running the clinical trial for ampreloxetine. But those people that are working clinical development, we don't have a large CRO. We're going in and out and working with these investigative sites around the world. And it's a Theravance employee that's really going in and building a relationship and building the ability to work with these sites. Now, I think that's good, because that gives us a tactile feel of the challenges that the physicians have in treating these patients, the challenges that the patients have with this disease. I mean, I've just spent a month in Europe, going to the UK, Spain, Italy, Austria, visiting clinical sites, so I could both work with the investigators, make sure that we were addressing all the needs that they had, so they could optimize their work on our study, and also for me to learn really what are the issues that they're having with the treatment of the disease, just upfront and personal. And without that tactile feel, I think, of a disease, particularly rare disease, it doesn't enable you to optimize the strategy big picture wise. So, it's a challenge to run a rare disease study around the world, but I also think that there's great benefits if you're willing to put the time in to engage with one-on-one with these investigators around the world and learn the challenges that they have in dealing with their patients.
I love that. I think it's really, really interesting and fairly unique. And kind of coming back to your point about being mission driven, it really, that is it. And then I often hear, when you're in the rare disease space, it's sometimes hard to really get the motivation to be like, why are we doing this? If you're working in oncology, everyone's known someone who's affected by cancer, and you don't often have that in rare disease. So if you're doing something like that, you get it, basically.
Yeah, and I have a not so unique, but my father died of multiple system atrophy.
Wow.
And he had severe neurogenic orthostatic hypotension. So I sort of began this journey, unfortunately, with an understanding of what the disease is and the challenge that it has for patients and their caregivers, the people that are trying to care for them each and every day to get them through a 24-hour period. And that's connection that does even further enhance sort of the mission-driven nature of what we do. I think to be in this business, to do what we do, you have to put the patient at the center. I mean, it's a must, because if you don't, you'll end up making little incremental decisions that are bad, and that eventually, don't help your company to be successful. But if you keep the patient at the center and you keep making the right decisions for the patient, whether it's helping them with reimbursement, whether it's considering that you've got to communicate with not only the patient, but the caregiver, that helps you to be successful. So
I think that's awesome advice. Like, I always think the dynamic of biotech is absolutely fascinating, in the fact that, people are in it to make the world a better place. It's patient focused, but also at the end of the day, you've got these shareholders, and it's a business. And like, I was at JP Morgan for the first time at the start of the year, and it really started to click in my head that, like, these people are also smart and they're so science driven, but they're entrepreneurs, and it's a crazy dynamic when you break it down.
Yeah, you have to get a return on investment for your shareholders. that has to be your objective. And it's a business that's filled with uncertainty, because you're taking in almost all instances, you're taking a product, a chemical or a protein or something, and you're putting it in a human being, and that's novel. That has not been done before. And it takes an extraordinary set of experience to take it from the bench to the marketplace, and knowledge of a series of different people with different skill sets, knitting them together to enable them to be successful at eventually delivering this medicine. And again, to your point, you've got to deliver value for your investors. And hence my point about today, you have to define a niche where you can compete, where you can deliver something of value that no one else can deliver. For example, our COPD medicine, Yupelri, it is the only once daily long-acting muscarinic antagonist, which is gold standard therapy to open up the lungs or help people to breathe better. It's the only product that's delivered in a nebulizer like that. So now nebulized products only make up about 1 in 10 COPD patients, but that's okay, because there won't be another product like this that enters the market. So as long as we can meet the needs of that 1 in 10 really, really well, we will be successful with Yupelri, and our partner will be successful. Likewise, ampreloxetine in treatment of MSA, in treatment of NOH and MSA patients, there's one product here that can do that. And if we can be successful in treating these NOH patients with MSA better than anything else, then we will earn a return that's very attractive for our shareholders. But we've got to meet that patient need to do that.
Yeah, 100%. And I want to bring it back to the industry. You've obviously been at Theravance for a long time, but been part of the biotech industry for a long time. Like, what's potentially surprising to you regarding the current environment? And do you see it as a challenge or a potential opportunity as well?
Well, I think the expanding knowledge of biology and disease processes, and the number of different tools that we can use, from gene therapy to small molecules, to achieve better healthcare. I think that's incredibly exciting, because even with 95% of prescriptions that are written in the United States being generic, there's still a terrific opportunity to improve care with new technology, building on knowledge of the biology that has been emerging over the last 20 years. So I think that part of it is exciting, and I think the competition, it's never been more competitive, as I said, than it is today. Not only competition in product markets, but competition in the capital markets for money in order to accomplish what you need to do, and the ability to earn a return for shareholders that you have. So, what financial success of this industry has brought a lot of capital into these markets, which has created a lot of competition. It is an absolute example of what happens in a capitalist economy, which is, profits invite more investment, and more investment eventually drives more competition, and it gets tougher and tougher. But you can still, if you identify that need and you're the best in class in meeting it, and you support your patient, you still can deliver returns and do things that were unthinkable, quite honestly, 20, 25 years ago with regard to healthcare delivery.
Yeah. And, coming out of JPM as well, China was quite a big topic of conversation. And like you just said there, they've kind of jumped on that opportunity of, potential gaps in the market. What's your view of the country's impact on global biopharma innovation, and how does that change potential decision making within the industry as well?
It's extraordinary. It's extraordinary
Yeah.
because the amount of capital that's been dedicated to biotechnology in China. And I think that, when you look at the last 10 years, you had a massive upregulation of capital, in China being dedicated to the industry. And then for several years, you had a massive upregulation in overall in the capital markets with all this, with the biotech bubble and all this money flying into biotechnology to try and create new companies. So you have those two elements, and China has now gone from copying by and large a great base business of generics to now a driver of innovation and a source of innovation for the rest of the world. I mean, more and more products that are sold in the United States are likely to be licensed from Chinese companies, Chinese research organizations that have in fact discovered them and done the initial biology. So I think it's very exciting. It puts a real premium on excellence in research because you're competing with a much bigger market for research than what you were doing 20 years ago. So I think that it's been a positive move. Obviously, it's going to benefit patients tremendously in terms of innovation for China. And China will support innovation. That's the thing. As they innovate, they will want a higher and higher premium for intellectual property. And I think that will be good for other innovators around the world.
Does that change decision making across the industry then? Does the success that's come out of China?
It does. Yeah, I think it does. And in fact, it even changing the decision making, at Theravance as long as 10 years ago, where you could see this happening. I can remember talking to our head of research at the time, and we were seeing this massive amount of capital that was planned to go into the company creation and innovation creation, both universities and companies in China. And we thought, there is going to be an extraordinary pool of innovation that can be tapped into, 10 years from now. Well, what does that mean for research that's done in the United States? Well, it has to be much better today than it was 10 years ago in order for it to compete. And it made it tougher for, organizations like Theravance in research to compete with the overall global market. I mean, where you have to make decisions about where are you going to be competitively superior. And for us, it became a choice really of we were going to be competitively superior in taking the medicines that had come out of our research organization and developing them in a way in niche markets to satisfy patient need. And that's where our emphasis needed to be, over the last 5+ years. And that's what we've done. But, innovation from China is going to provide innovation to the world and innovation to a lot of companies who pick it up and develop it further.
Yeah. And also just like talking about decision making beyond what's happening in China and the innovation coming out of China, does the current market and the potential struggles across the current market affect your decision making at Theravance as well?
The struggles, you're always going to have struggles. I mean, capital is going to be easy to get, then it's going to be hard to get. I mean, it goes through different cycles. So you do have to plan for uncertainty, and you have to do everything you can in the execution of your business strategy, to aggressively manage that uncertainty where you can, to reduce the risk for your company. So yes, I think that all across the board, the changes that are happening in industry, you have to take that into consideration when you're executing your corporate strategy. You have to take it into consideration when you're staffing your company, when you're hiring your company. One of the issues that has occurred because of the biotech bubble and a whole host of companies getting started is that it created an extraordinary demand on talented labor. And in fact, you had, all these new companies that were being formed, all of them, depending on where they were, they needed either great chemists, great biologists, great drug metabolism people. And in fact, there were not, it wasn't that magically the supply of those great people increased. The supply in that short a period of time didn't change at all, but the demand went up significantly. So you had a bit of dilution, of talent because of the demand, the labor demand for all the talented people that you had with all the companies that had been created. And it takes a period of time to get all of the, depending on your specialty, to get a group of people up to where they can actually perform at an extraordinary level and to develop them. And I think this dilution of talent that happened in the biotech bubble was real, and it's probably contributed perhaps to somewhat of a lower success rate across the board, because many people were learning. Okay, and I think now the industry, there's no question, over the next 5 to 10 years is going to benefit from that, because people have got the hard-earned scars of different challenges that they faced and overcome, and they'll be ready for the next. It's more likely that they'll take the next piece of technology and make it successful.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I think so. And do you see like a potential catalyst that would move us forward in like the next 12, 24 months in terms of the whole industry?
Whether it's a single catalyst or not, I continue to believe that the pressure on diseases of the aging, and particularly diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, we've kind of treated those diseases a bit differently than we did cancer from a public policy perspective. In the 90s, the NCI doubled their budget twice over a period of 10 years. Significant investment. Rick Klausner and Harold Varmus, leading the NIH and the NCI, made terrific investments in the understanding of the basic biology of cancer. And they did that because the government stepped in and funded an extraordinary amount of basic research that then the industry could take some of this basic research and begin to develop new products. Now, most of those products failed, because that's the nature of the industry. But some of them were successful, and those successes built on each other in the cancer therapy. That is not what's happened by and large with diseases of the aging of the central nervous system. We haven't had that bolus of capital come in on basic research. It's more dribbled in over time. Now, I think that it will. I think people will finally realize that, oh my gosh, Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease is having a negative effect on gross domestic product. We've got to fix these diseases, and the way we fix them is investment in research and then investments in medicine to treat them. So I see that as a potential catalyst.
Yeah, I mean, we're all hoping for it, definitely.
Yes, we're hoping for it.
Yeah, can we just look back at your career as well? I just want like one moment that'd be, I think, pretty exciting for people coming through the industry to hear that would, contribute to the way you think and your success.
At one moment, it might have been, early in my career when Bristol Myers licensed in a drug called Taxol to treat cancer. Eventually treated ovarian cancer, breast cancer, non-small cell lung cancer, Kaposi sarcoma, etc. And the choice to license this product in from the NCI, it was a difficult choice because there was like no guarantee, and it was really made based on a single partial response in an ovarian cancer patient. And that a patient that had been treated with everything that there was, which wasn't much at that point in time, but yet Taxol, they treated it with Taxol, had side effects to it, but they saw a partial response. And it was on that strength of partial response that the company made the decision to license the product in to reformulate, to find a way, because there was no way to manufacture the drug at scale at all. It had to be completely started, the manufacturing from scratch, from the Pacific yew tree, from bark from the Pacific yew tree. So bark had to be gathered out of the Pacific Northwest, gathered by the ton to be synthesized into paclitaxel raw material. So, and it was all based on this partial response in an ovarian cancer patient that a really smart person said, you know what, that's unique. We don't see that. And, it lined up, billions of dollars of investment, and it lined up a medicine that eventually extended survival in ovarian cancer, metastatic breast cancer, adjuvant breast cancer, and non-small cell lung cancer. So that was, I remember that moment like it was yesterday, because somebody just said, listen, it's not much, but we need to go after this, and we may be able to do something very special.
I love that. Yeah. And then, look, finally, just to finish, it's a question that we ask all our guests. I think you've had a bit of time to think about it as well, Rick. So if you could have dinner with any scientist or innovator, past or present, who would it be and why?
Well, I think it'd probably be Isaac Newton. One, because I'd probably only get like 20 minutes, of his time, and I would probably only have a chance to ask him. I mean, to try and understand how he thought about things, how he saw what he saw, that ended up translating into, really the basic understanding of how the universe is put together. And I just think 20 minutes with him, one line of something of how he saw the world and what it was that made him think about X would be, incredibly valuable.
I agree. I think that's an amazing answer. And look, thanks so much for coming on, Rick. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for the podcast. I hope it's been valuable, and obviously I love the industry, and whatever I can do to highlight opportunity there, I will. So thank you, Max.
No, it's a pleasure. You've got so much wisdom, and I love listening to you as well. So look, please everyone like and subscribe to the BioHub, and thanks again, Rick.
Thank you. Take care.
You too.